Air outside, Lloyd Animal Shelter was sharp with winter's chill, but inside, stillness felt heavier than. Chilly 6-year-old Emma Williams stood barely past the threshold, her small, tightly wrapped fingers around him, wide quiet eyes on her mother's coat. Unlike others, distant didn't wander. Kids might, instead they stayed, fixed on finding something even. She could name Claire Williams, former combat medic turned full-time. Mother looked at her daughter with quiet concern. 8 months since accidental death of her husband, Captain Robert Williams Trains. Explosion nobody saw coming, and exactly 8 months since Emma last spoke. LeClaire whispered to herself rather than Emma. Her calm voice was practiced. Learn to speak softly since Emma. Silence became their new reality. Shelter manager, kind FAC volunteer Janet led them past loaded kennels. CLA read to barking pups. Animals, especially small dogs, may help grievers. She came looking for kids. Gentle adoptable companion may rekindle Emma's world, but passing kennels afterwards, Emma's expression remained unchanged. One flicker of interest. Janet didn't move. Provided reassurance. We have several. Maybe something in the next hall. We'll click. CLA nodded properly. Emma were quiet as the wind howled gently across the barren trees, and just beyond the restricted staff door, a silent connection awaited. Found one that changed. Everything quieted in the hallway. Claire stopped to talk to Janet about paperwork. Emma briefly allowed move her feet off her mother's coat, silently, like they were being guided by something she didn't understanding. A soft but sure pull towards the side door. She'd eyed since entering, a faded metal sign. Read restricted staff only, but latch. Emma's tiny hand wasn't fully caught. Pushed it open quietly. The door led to a dim, cold corridor. Nobody decorated them. The fluorescent lights flickered above. The air smelled slightly antiseptic. At the end, a technician in fear. Scrubs gently coaxed a weak German leash shepherd down hallway. Ribs showed as dog barely walked through his patchy coat and legs, shaking with each slow step. No light in his clouded eyes, only. Emma froze in resignation. Something about his ear curve, heavy gait, his scarred flank. She knew him. Heart skipped. Stop, she whispered. Nobody heard. Her voice cracked louder. Months of silence. Stop, technician. Stop. Startled CLA came. Her eyes darted through the open door. Wild Emma, the little girl, was already crying as, throwing her arms around the weak frame. This is Daddy's dog, she said, voice shaking, but sure his name is Shadow. Claire was baffled by the scar. Mil AR tattoo on ear. Couldn't. It was, and for the first time in months, Claire noticed a flicker. Emma's eyes remember, but raw and genuine. Shadow nearly lifeless moments earlier lifted his head, tilted toward her touch. Technician froze mid-step, confused. The sudden outburst, but what caught him even more surprising was the dog's behavior. Moments from his ultimate fate. Breath, responded. Chad's ears twitched. Heavy and limp seconds ago. Pressed weakly against the girl. Chest. CLA kneeled beside daughter, gently touching Shadow's side. She gasped when her fingers touched the faded ink. Under his fur, a military service tattoo her husband mentioned long ago in a quiet conversation about his time overseas. Roberts. CLA whispered. Emma, his dog, pulled a small, crumpled paper from her pocket. Child's coat. Bright colors, shaky lines, but clearly written on top. I is your friend, she persevered, both hands shaking her chin. He doesn't have anyone now, she cried, glittering in her lashes. But I'll stay. Don't let him go. Quiet fell over the hallway even. Technician glanced uncertainly, hesitantly, toward the intercom. Moments later, shelter director Alan Ellis arrived, stern, calm, and ready. Impatient. This dog is dying, he said. 10% survival chance. It's not humane to extend, but CLA stood. He's not protecting Emma and Shadow. Just a dog, his family. Ellis hesitated, his mouth sealed. He slowly, grudgingly, not as Shadow got one. A little girl's last chance. Remembered him after the world forgot. Silent drive home. Shadow curled up in the back seat. Old blanket. CLA kept in his trunk. Breathing was shallow, every rise and fall off his chest. Quiet battle. Emma sitting. She never looked away from him. She gently touches his paw. Entire ride as if scared. Giving up could make him disappear. Claire monitored them again. Rearview mirror. Her heart caught strange fear, all mixed. This wasn't the cheerful little therapy dog she'd expected to bring home. Wounded soldier fades to Emma. Was very different when they arrived. Claire carried Shadow inside. Was too weak to climb her stairs. Him on a thick cushion in the corner. Living room fireplace, and set out water and soft food. He barely touched. Emma worked silently. She grabbed her softest blanket. He carefully tucked it around him. Her care in dipping a cloth was surprising. Started cleaning with warm water. Dirt from his fur or her little fingers. She whispered slowly to him. He alone used her soft, broken phrases. Stood in the doorway hearing Claire. Untouched, tea cooling in her. Hands she wanted to spare. Whatever fragile magic was happening in front of her and before bed. It was a sound she hadn't heard in nearly a year. Faint, brief laughter. Like a melody searching for its place. Back CLA viewed the living room. Saw Emma curled up beside Shadow. Both finally, if temporarily. Peace came shortly after. Midnight. Claire dozed off. Couch sleeplessness in front of the fire. Emma lay in bed, burning low. She insisted on saying upstairs. 3 separate good nights. Times before closing her eyes. The house was quiet until it wasn't. Sharp thud and guttural sound. A groan woke Claire. Snapped to Shadow's corner. Seized his limbs while resting. His body violently twisted. Abnormal angles. Foam clung to sides. His mouth, his eyes dimmed, but peaceful were now broad. Unfocused Claire moved on instinct. She kneeled, holding his head, murmuring his name repeatedly. Shadow, stay with me, Emma. At the top of stairs. Barefoot and wide-eyed. She didn't cry. She ran past without screaming. CLA loaded Shadow into the back. The car. Emma was already secured beside him, clutching the blanket edge as if it may keep him together. Veterinary emergency clinic delay. Neurologist Hannah Tran. Honest reputation assessed. While CLA and Emma waited, Shadow. Small, windowless room smelling like bleach and concern when the doctor arrived. Her face was tight. He's hurt. Severe neurological episode, she said. Silently. Multiple systems fail. Body fights but looks bad. Emma didn't sink into the chair. Claire did. Move. Morning light crept through. Waiting room blinds as CLA sat. Her head in her hands. Emma finally fell asleep on a chair, small fingers still holding Claire's worn blanket edge. Had no sleep after Dr. TR's advice. Without seeing a pattern. Shadows. Neurological onset symptoms. Damage that seemed too severe. Trauma it didn't make sense. Maria Ramirez appeared. Maria Oakridge, veterinary tech, had secretly entered the clinic after. Her face collapses at Shadow's mention. Pale, her voice low. I shouldn't. Here she started, but I know. Happening to him, and I can't keep quiet anymore. She gave Claire manila. Pictures and folders, emails. Detailed notes from Oaks. Medical records and internal files. Signed by shelter director Alan Ellis. Claire leafed through them. Heart racing. Chad's name was on the list alongside 13 other dogs. Non-adoptable, all injected. Trial of NTX-17. Privately developed compound. Pharmaceutical company they used. Maria said to test the shelter. Unregulated testing. NTX-17 was supposed to sedate, but high doses caused delays. They injected neurological breakdown. Shadow 28 days ago. Claire's breath caught, so he ceased. Maria nodded. They never meant him to. They rushed him to survive. Euthanasia to hide. CLA's fists clenched. Wasn't just neglect. Shadow had served betrayal. Protected, bled for his nation. They later repaid him this way. Morning. Based on Maria's testimony, Claire showed police executed a warrant at Oakridge. Found the locked cabinet in Vile Rose. Marked NTX-17. Signed inventory logs. Ellis detailed notebook. Written proof of each illegal injection featuring Shadows. Alan Ellis was handcuffed by noon. Silently removed from shelter. Late justice began, however small. Clinic quieted in the afternoon. Chaos of morning arrests and court calls gave way to a quiet reverence in the ICU. Shadow remained surrounded by machines. Beeping and flickering wires. Claire sat with fragile hope signals. Beside him, numb fingers interlocked. Tightly in her lap, Emma was too. A small stool supported her knees. Eyes fixed on her chest. Shadow's stillness indicates fatigue. Dr. Tran gently said the antidote may slow compound spread, but his body has endured so much he may lack the strength to return. Claire nodded, but Emma didn't. Reacting, she hadn't cried or run. Instead, she carefully climbed the bed. No one stopped her. She lay beside him like she did last night, as one hand covered his heart, another stroking his ear back. His shallow breathing was faint. Her palm fur barely moved. Emma then did something new. Since Robert's death, she started. Not loudly or perfectly, but her father's lullaby. Humming on long car rides in quiet. But Sunday mornings her voice wavered. She kept writing as tears fell silently down her cheeks for a long time. When nothing happened, Shadow's ear paw twitched slightly. A soft beep from the heart monitor. Pause, then steadier, stronger. However faint, life was pushing him back. Stopped singing and whispered no. Dr. TR no longer needs strength alone. Viewing through the glass wrapped her. Mouth open in shock, CLA leaned forward. Her heart racing, Shadow took one long, trembling breath and opened his eyes. He was here the days. Slow, careful, and filled. Quietly hope Shadow stayed under close observation, his movements limited. But his eyes were lit again. He constantly followed Emma's voice. He watched her footsteps. Each enhancement, every head lift. Every scene in his story felt like a victory. Emma stayed with him. Read her favorite picture to him. Books held his paw while he slept. Secret promises only children could hear. Make him mean deeply. Claire noticed from the doorway. Emma also spoke not. Just Shadow, Claire, Dr. T.R. Voice once locked away by grief returned not in grand speeches, but soft daily. I'm hungry, need water. Thought he liked this song. It wasn't just restoration shadows. His records were checked. Military tattoo history and placement with Captain Robert Williams were confirmed. His declaration. Failure to act after explosion. Lost in confusion, moved to public shelter without ID. An army officer delivered something Claire wasn't expecting. Service certificate and medal. Shadow posthumously honored for his combat experience. Claire kept it. Hands, throat tightening. Always go to him, she said. Emma gently placed the medal on Shadow blanket and whispered, homecoming. Shadow, vulnerable but listening, laid his head beside her hand and closed his eyes. Not surrender, but peace for the first time in ages. Everything complete again. The sky was overcast. The morning they visited Robert's grave. CLA parked near military cemetery with white headstones. Silently guarded the past. Emma emerged first with a small bouquet of wildflowers she picked. Herself, Shadow trailed his pace. Slower, more stable gait. Greater confidence than in weeks. Without leash, CLA carried nothing but her thoughts. They stopped. Captain Robert etched in stone. James Williams. Emma placed flowers. Gently touched its base and reached into her coat pocket and extracted the crumpled drawing she had kept throughout. Once she showed Shadow at the shelter. We'll be your friend, she added. Nobody touched the flowers for a while. Spoke softly as CLA knelt beside her. Your father will be proud. Your sweetheart. Emma looked up. Eyes filled with more than sadness, like comprehension. Shadow headed forward, lowering his head. After sniffing the stone, he sat, quiet, as if guarding. Last time with his former handler. Let out a quiet bark. Not desperate, it sounded like a Claire rose, reports mission completed. Her feet seeking Emma's hand. Little girl took it and they turned, leaving Shadow behind. Faithfully walking behind them. Back through the peaceful marble rows. Claire looked down at Emma, speaking. Warm, steady, we're home, sweetness. We're whole again. In that moment. Under a gray sky and in silence. Grief weighed on memory. Towards something stronger. Enduring love.